Scrutiny Committee. My name is Charlotte and I am the Scrutiny Officer for this meeting. Present with me today in Talbot Civic Centre are Councillor Cypher Harman, Councillor Sonia Reynolds, Craig Griffiths, Andrew Thomas, Rhiannon Crowhurst and Jane Woodman-Ralph. Masks do not need to be worn by us today as we are adhering to the social distancing guidelines as detailed in the risk assessment undertaken to allow us to come into the council chamber today. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting will be recorded. Can I also welcome members of the public and press to today's meeting, and can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not to speak or participate? Can I please remind you all to switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? Just to provide you with the logistics of today's meeting, we will firstly take the joint meeting of Cabinet and Education Skills and Culture Scrutiny Committee, where the Strategic School Improvement Programme report will be discussed. Following conclusion of the Scrutiny Committee, the Cabinet will meet to take the decision. You would have received separate invitations for these meetings. In addition, can I refer you to the protocols for remote meetings, which have been previously circulated, namely, your microphone should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. A roll call will be taken at the start of this meeting of all members and officers. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either via the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams. I will assume that you have all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Therefore, when asking a question, can you please indicate which page number you are referring to? When speaking, please introduce yourselves. As you can see on the agenda, the first item is to do a roll call. I will go through the members of the committee first, cabinet members and then officers. So firstly, if I can start with Councillor Matthew Crowley.
Present, Charlotte.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Wyndham Griffiths.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Joe Hale.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sian Harris.
Present.
Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Present.
Councillor Steve Hunt. I have had apologies, Chair, for the start of the meeting, but he may enter the meeting throughout. Councillor Jane Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Simon Noyle.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Personal, Charlotte, present still.
Thank you. Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Rydian Maisen.
Yeah, present, Charlotte. Ma'am.
Councillor Suzanne Patterson.
Present.
Councillor Sheila Penry.
Present.
Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
Present, present.
Councillor Mark Prothero.
Present. Thanks, Charlotte.
Councillor Lynette Purcell.
Present.
Councillor Cypher Harman.
Present.
Councillor Suzanne Renkes.
Present.
Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
Present.
Councillor Anthony Richards.
Present, present.
Councillor Dave Whitelock.
Present. Thank you, Charlotte.
Councillor Rob Wood.
Present.
Councillor Arwyn Woolcock.
Present, present.
Apologies from co-opted member Adam Moore. Co-opted member Marie Caddick.
Present, Charlotte.
Thank you. I've also had apologies from the co-opted member Linda Newman. Co-opted member Roberto De Benedictis. No. And then, Chair, we've also had a request from Councillor Rosalind Davis to attend. So, Councillor Rosalind Davis.
Oh, sorry. Present.
Thank you. And then if I just move on to cabinet members, Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Mike Harvey.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Doreen Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Peter Richards.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present Charlotte.
Yeah. Have I missed any members at all?
Councillor
No.
Spooner's got a hand up, Charlotte.
Oh, apologies.
Sorry, I missed me off the list.
Sorry,
Charlotte,
Councillor.
thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Apologies for that.
Right.
If I move on to officers then, Karen Jones,
Present.
Andrew Thomas,
Present.
Howell Jenkins,
Present.
Andrew Jarrett,
Yeah, I'm present, Charlotte.
yes,
Present.
Ray Griffiths,
Present.
Rhiannon Crowhurst,
Present.
Peter Colonel,
Present.
Roger Bowen,
Present.
Lee Merrifield,
Present.
Woodman Ralph.
Present.
Have I missed any officers at all? No. There we are, that's the roll call done. If I move to the agenda again, the second item is to appoint a chairperson and vice chairperson. Can I please have a proposer for a chair?
I am Councillor Saifur Rahman and I am proposing Councillor Sonia Reynolds to be the chairperson for today's meeting.
Thank you. Can someone please second that proposal?
Councillor Sharon Freegard, I'll second that.
Thank you. Can Councillor Sonia Reynolds please undertake the role as chair?
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you for taking us through that part of the meeting. And I would like to ask for proposers for a vice chair for today's meeting, please.
Councillor Idiot Meisner, I propose Councillor Saifur Rahman to go as vice chair.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Councillor Sharon Freegard, I second that, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor. Thank you.
You're on mute.
Love this. You can hear yourself in the chamber, so sometimes you don't realise that you've muted. I'm therefore going to ask for declarations of interest, if I may.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members, for this meeting. Can I just add that Standards Committee have granted a dispensation to all members who are school governors that you were able to speak and vote on such matters. So can I ask members to raise their electronic hands if they are school governors, so Democratic Services can make a record and they'll be able to then send you the appropriate forms for completion.
We'll just have to wait a moment whilst the Democratic Services officers take note of all the hands. So if you'll just be patient for a minute. Frantic writing going on in the chamber. Are we all right, Charlotte? Can we?
If you just bear with me 2 seconds, thank you. Yeah, Chair, I can confirm we've got them all, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you then, members. If I can ask then if you could just lower your electronic hands then at the moment. And if there are any members who have an interest over and above being a school governor, perhaps you can make an indication now and it can be noted on the record, please. Chair, they've all been recorded now, so on the absence of being no additional members, happy that the declarations of interest have been sorted.
Thank you very much. In that case, we move on to the school improvement programme discussion. Before I go to officers to provide an overview, I'd like to call on the Chief Executive to say a few words, please. Karen, if you'd.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm aware that there's a lot of public interest in the meeting this afternoon, so that it would be helpful if I just said something about the timing of bringing this report forward, because members will be aware that the consultation report was delayed in terms of the issuing of it subsequent to the tape recording that I'm sure many people are aware of now that appeared on social media. So just to explain very briefly, the decision to delay the consultation report was taken to ensure that we could do some additional due diligence on the processes that we've undertaken in bringing forward the advice for today. To undertake that work, I appointed Mr. Rod Olcott, formerly a senior manager with Wales Audit Office, who was assisted by Mr. Jack Straw, the Chief Executive of the City and County of Swansea. And what they've done is looked at the decision-making processes that we've followed to date in relation to the school reorganisation report. And their conclusion from the report that they've given me is that the council can take overall assurance regarding its systems and processes. They have made some recommendations, as you would imagine from any review, and that relates to ensuring meetings are accurately recorded, so that we can ensure the interests of openness and transparency are maintained. But their main conclusion is that the council can take overall assurance regarding systems and processes that we've followed to date. I have shared that report, Chair, with the Auditor General, and he has concluded that he does not feel it necessary to undertake specific audit work at the present time. He's noted that there are some procedural and governance matters that we need to address, and he's asked for sight of the action plan that I'm going to put in place to address that. This information will be put before the Council's Governance and Audit Committee next week. He's also mentioned that when the Public Services Ombudsman work is completed, he will look at his findings at that time. As far as the Public Services Ombudsman is concerned, then, he's advised me that he's not aware of any issue that should stop us bringing forward the report today. And what he's also said is that the remainder of his investigations will focus only on the member and not on broader systemic or governance issues. So I know the members are aware of this information because I circulated it a week or so ago. But in view of the fact that there are members of the public on the call today, I thought it would be helpful if I just provided that context to explain why the consultation report was delayed in being issued and why we're bringing forward the report at this time. And that's all I wanted to say, just by way of comment at the start of the meeting, Chair.
Thank you very much, Karen, and that's useful clarification. I assume that all members have read the report. I know it's long, and therefore, for the benefit of the public and to remind us of the important context of that, I'm going to ask officers to give a brief overview. So, Andrew, can I ask you to do so?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm, first of all, that all members have had the letter circulated from Sioned Williams, MS, and Ben Thomas. They were circulated yesterday, and I'm going to assume, unless anybody puts their hand up and tells me they haven't had a copy of the report, that all members today on this meeting have had a copy of the report. I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to make that assumption. Good. There were two other letters which came in yesterday, one from Prague and one from Swansea University, which made representations to the council requesting that we think again. There was no request of both of those organisations to circulate to members, so that's why you haven't seen sight of those letters. A copy of the response that we will send to both organisations will be made available to all members following this meeting, irrespective of the outcome of this meeting. So again, just wanted to clarify that. And the final point, just before I start my sort of introduction, is there's an administration issue that I want to bring to members' attention. In the report, it says that the report is subject to a 3-day call-in. It is actually intended for immediate implementation. If you look at the statutory notice, you'll see the date, and that reflects that. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that if members are so minded to progress it today, that the full 28 days of the statutory notice are included within term time. Because we think it's right and proper that staff and parents and pupils are in session when we go to this period of 28 days for formal objections. So I just wanted to make that clear to you at the outset. So happy to take any questions around that before I start.
I don't see any hands, but I would like to go to Charlotte briefly.
Yes, apologies, Chair. I can see that Councillor Rachel Taylor has joined. I just wanted to check if she had any declarations that she needed to raise.
I am school governor, Charlotte, but as many other people, I think that's covered by the blanket
Dispensation.
Kind of dispensation, yes.
That's fine. We'll send you a declaration of interest form outside the meeting. Thank you. That's it from me, Chair.
Okay, Chair,
Right,
shall I continue?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure the members are fully aware of where we are in terms of the process around school reorganisation before we get into the body of the report. This is not the final decision today. We're not asking Cabinet later to take a decision around the closure of these 3 schools. This is like if you're the midpoint in terms of the process. We've been out to consultation. We went out to consultation for 11 weeks and were required to come back to members and report on that consultation exercise. And hence the consultation report, which was published a couple of weeks ago. So people need to be really understand that this isn't the final determination today, but it is an important part of the process nevertheless. But Cabinet will not be requested to make a final decision on the closure of anything later today. The other thing, I think, as Karen mentioned earlier, there's no reason that we feel that we shouldn't bring this report forward in terms of public confidence. And indeed, all the reports that members see today and obviously the public have been scrutinised by our council, somebody we engaged, very experienced in public services, and we've taken on board the comments of the council, and he certainly doesn't believe that there's any issues within the report. And he's considered our consultation process in light of what we went through in terms of COVID, and he certainly does not consider it to be a flawed process. In fact, it's the same methodology, even though we didn't have public face-to-face meetings, the same methodology that we followed countless numbers of times now in Neath Talbot. And we have been in 3 judicial reviews, it is worth mentioning that, and we haven't lost one of them. So it's the same process and has been tried and tested in the High Court most recently. And again, we weren't found wanting. And lastly, the thing I want to say before I go into this report is there's been a lot of consultation comment, and I understand the confusion, to be fair, around pupil numbers, and I'll pick up more about that later on. But I just want to say on public record here today, I know this meeting is being recorded. We've got scrutiny members here, we've got cabinet members, I've got my chief exec, and I've got the leader of the council on this call, plus cabinet, that there is no intention to close any other school other than the 3 mentioned in this report attached to this consultation and school reorganisation proposal. None whatsoever. So I want to leave nobody in any doubt whatsoever that is only these 3 schools that is involved in this now and into the future, because we believe that the school pupil numbers reported in this report future-proof the new school, but they do not include the closure of any future school. So I just wanted to make that very, very clear to members. And as I say, that now is a matter of public record, and I hope that gives people confidence that there's no hidden agenda in this. So what I thought I'd do, Chair, is just take people through the sort of what I regard as being the highlight issues identified within the consultation, and then just open it to members for questions, if that's okay with you. First thing I want to talk about is site. People have asked why Park and Esteru. Well, a school the size of the pupil numbers included in the consultation with outdoor facilities requires approximately 34,000 square metres. Nearly 20,000 of that is for the school and the remainder for outdoor playing areas. But because of the playing fields at Park and Esteru, we don't need to find a site for the playing areas because they're already provided. And there aren't any other sites in the council ownership in that part of the world large enough to accommodate a school of this size. There are also some health and well-being benefits which we've identified in the report with this co-location in terms of the leisure centre, and of course this proposal does involve the creation or the opening of a new swimming pool, 6-lane swimming pool, 25-metre pool and learner pool. We're not consulting on that because there's no requirement to, but it is an important aspect of this because we do believe we're creating a health and well-being campus here particularly because it includes the 1,300 pupils at Cwmtawi School. And I think there are benefits in terms of co-location of the new primary school with Cwmtawi, not least of which all the pupils from Godrewgraig at the moment, they transfer to Cwmtawi. So I think the transition arrangements, not for just Godrewgraig, but Llangyw Cynartwen as well, can become more seamless, and there's an opportunity there for cross-phase working, which do exist now. I'm not going to pretend that they don't, but are certainly more difficult because they're not co-located on the same site. So that's why Park and Esteru. Traffic was a big issue in the consultation responses, and that is quite right and quite proper because it is a very busy site. But in all cases where we've dealt with these things in the past, Ysgol Bay Baglan, Cwmbrombil being 2 cases where there's a lot of pupils, a lot of traffic, because of the availability of capital expenditure, which wouldn't otherwise be available, we always have made the situation better than it currently is. This is an opportunity to look at the traffic management of the site, including the secondary school. And you know, there are issues with how busy that site is in terms of, you know, the buses arriving, the cars. We envisage, if this goes ahead, that investment will be going to dedicated parent drop-off areas, dedicated car parking for the staff. If this goes ahead, as I keep saying, we will conduct traffic impact assessments, and that information will be given into the contractor when we appoint a contractor, and it is their role to design a solution which meets our planning processes. Now, our planning processes have never let us down. They're very detailed, they're very rigorous, they're very comprehensive. And the way this project would work was the contractor's job is to design that traffic management system such that it will make the situation better than it currently is, even though there's additional traffic on the site. And there's, you know, the impact assessments will determine what that additional traffic we think will look like. And that's why there isn't a complete traffic management system detail now, because just in terms of the timetabling of these things, it would be improper to do so. So I do understand the frustration. You'd love to see a fully planned out system, but that actually is the role of the contractor should we get to that point for them to design it. And that's standard practice, and that's the same practice that we've employed right across Neath Talbot in any of our large school reorganisation proposals. Transport and travel of pupils is obviously important, particularly in parents' mind. And we know that the vast majority of the pupils would live within 2 miles of the school should this go ahead. And there are suitable walking routes currently, but those suitable walking routes are assessed for secondary age children. So again, if this goes ahead, we will assess those routes with the known location of the pupils who would be in the school at that time, because we do have to remember that the implementation date here is September 2024. So there are a substantial number of the pupils in those schools now who will no longer be in that school, those schools when this opens. So we will need to do those assessments closer to the date so that we pick up the exact locations of the families who are attending the schools at that time. Any pupil who doesn't live on a suitable walking route or lives outside the 2 mile location will be entitled to assistance with transport, and that means obviously travel to school will be provided free of charge forever. And again, there's no question about that transport entitlement being taken away. I just want to emphasize that. Whenever we propose a school reorganisation scheme, parents, and again, this is absolutely right and proper, and I would be exactly the same as a parent, concerns that there are concerns around pupil standards and in particular well-being. Many people think that a large school means that their child may be bullied or they wouldn't survive in a large school, and none of our experiences where we've created schools, large schools, and none of these concerns have manifested themselves. In fact, when we've gone back a year later to take these reports, if you like, we talked to the parents, we talked to the governors, the school leaders, the pupils themselves, and none of the concerns that they had in the lead up to the school reorganisation manifested themselves. Because truthfully, our school leaders and the governors, it's their responsibility to ensure that the children are settled in and they make friendship and the friendship circles, and they keep children safe within the environment. And well-being, and particularly well-being on the back of this, COVID pandemic, is going to be so important into the future. It is important now, but it's going to be even more. It's going to have a renewed focus in the future. And I'm confident that if this goes ahead, then the school leadership team and the governors, whose responsibility it is, would settle those children in, and any of those concerns would not be realised. We obviously have a statutory consultee, Estyn, and Estyn's view is that, you know, if this arrangement goes ahead, that we would at least maintain the current good standards in the school. And, you know, I'm very proud of the standards in all 3 schools. And as I say, the experience elsewhere tells us that these things can be managed. It does take time and effort and resource, but they can be managed, and the children's concerns and the parents' concerns can be dealt with. In terms of the Welsh language impact, an assessment of the records that we keep on the staff in the 3 schools informs us that 25% of the teachers and the staff in general in the new school would be fairly fluent or fluent. So clearly that would be a strength, where you'd be bringing together the best of those linguistic skills into one place. So the development of Welsh second language, we think, would be a positive over and above the arrangements currently. There are also some concerns that a new English medium school would be more attractive, and it would take away pupils going into Welsh medium. Well, I can tell you, where we've done this across the county borough, that has not been the case. We opened Moor back in 2013, I think it was, and the pupil numbers have increased in Moor. It's an English medium primary school, but the numbers in Rosalind, the nearest Welsh medium school, have increased even more. In fact, you know, I think in the future we will be looking to develop Moor even further to accommodate the demand for Welsh medium places in that area. So we've got no experience of an English medium school being opened up close to a Welsh medium school and it detracting from the number of pupils who want to study Welsh medium education. We did have some concerns mentioning that the new Cwmtawi school back in 1996, when it was opened, did irreparable damage to the number of pupils going to Ystlafera. I don't know if that's true or not. It's the best part of 26 years ago or 25 years ago. But even if it was the case, then we have certainly put that right now. We've invested circa £30 million in Welsh medium education in the Swansea Valley between Ystlafera, Pontedower Welsh School and Cwmllynfell. And all that investment, plus an £18 million in the south of the county borough, and all that investment will be realised prior to this new school opening, should members decide to open it. So the attraction of the new building will be, these schools will be finished, these projects will be finished in Welsh medium schools prior to the new English medium school opening. And I think that's an important point. And Chair, that's it in terms of my sort of introduction. I'm happy to take questions, and I know we've had questions from members, and I thank you for that in advance. It does aid scrutiny because it enables us to try and give the fullest answers possible, but happy to take questions now, Chair.
Thank you. Before everybody goes putting up their electronic hands, I have a pre-informed list of people who have notified questions, which I intend to go through first. I'm aware that Councillor Purcell has 4 areas of concern with a number of questions, and she is first on my list. And therefore, it is quite likely that we will stop between each of those areas of concern so that officers can answer. But also, it may be, if you have a question that's subsidiary to that, please could you put your hand up at that time? It helps if people are fairly disciplined about this. So I will be going first to Councillor Purcell, then Rebecca Phillips, Rosalind Davis, Marcia Spooner, Wyndham Griffiths, and then Rydian Mizzen, and may stop for subsidiaries between that if they directly. So if your question directly pertains to something that's come up in those discussions, please can you indicate at that point. I'm also aware that Councillor Alan Llewellyn wants to make a contribution at some point, and I'm assuming that's the same for you, Councillor Richards?
Yes, I did indicate yesterday that I wanted to ask questions,
yep.
But I wasn't able to attend the pre-briefing.
Yep. So if I put you at the end of that list, and then we'll move on to others from there. And what I'm hoping, I think, this is likely to be a long meeting. We discussed briefly previously that we try not to duplicate. If your question has been asked, I'd be really grateful, unless there's clarification, if we don't go over the same ground, although we do want to allow everybody to make their fair contribution and have full scrutiny on this item. So if I move then to Councillor Purcell.
Thank you very much. As we discussed yesterday, there are 4 areas of concern, and if I deal with them one by one, and then Andrew can have a go at answering them. My first concern, and this is in no particular order of priority, but my first concern is about the 3-year-olds who will be unable to access nursery provision because they currently are transported on foot to Llangwch School, and also the children who would be reliant on school transport. To give you an example, there's a mum who walks past my house every day pushing a little baby in a pram. Her 2 little brothers walk to Llangwch and the baby is pushed along the road. This mum and many, many others in the social housing estate in Bethesda Road have no car. It will not be possible for that child in the pram to access nursery. Now, the officers refer to that in the report. They refer on page 66 to how nursery education is non-statutory, and therefore there's no entitlement to assistance with travel, and it's the same elsewhere in the county borough. So it's not the officer's problem, but it is ours. The bus children also cause concern. There's fears expressed by many that they will not be able to access the breakfast club and/or extracurricular activities. You state on page 14, bullet point 62, that extra transport for breakfast and after-school activities will not be provided. But then you come up with this intriguing idea that a later start for breakfast club works well, and you'll be looking at examples of good practice. So my first specific question is, can you tell us how this would work? That is a later start for breakfast club, and can you give us any examples? And related to that, and I'll stop at the end of this bit, related to that, I have questions arising from the Wellbeing of Future Generations 2015. Your report throughout rejects criticism that you have not borne in mind the requirements of this Act. The IIA is in itself, sorry for members of the public, the Integrated Impact Assessment, is full of well-meaning statements such as 263 page, education can be a route out of poverty, etc., which is totally true. But if we implement this proposal in front of us today, we are condemning some of the most needy children in our communities to starting off at a further disadvantage by not being able to access their essential early nursery education. If, as I and my community have demonstrated during the consultation, underprivileged 3-year-olds will not be able to access crucial nursery education, and that there are question marks over the ability of older siblings to access breakfast club, and this is the specific question, how can officers justify the statement in the IIA, page 259, which states that this proposal should have a positive impact on groups who experience socio-economic disadvantage? I am not prepared to accept that statement, and neither is my community, unless the officers can explain how this is in fact true. Sorry, I'll pause there.
Andrew?
You're on mute, Andrew.
I must admit, I don't remember muting myself, but sorry about that. Sorry, there's a number of questions I'll deal with the nursery aspect first, if that's okay. You're absolutely right. The report talks about the same arrangements suggested here as is the case right across the county borough, and it is also true to say that this issue raises its head every time we have school reorganisation proposals. It is not true to say that officers believe that it is not the officer's problem, and I would ask Councillor Purcell to point anywhere in the report where it says it's not the officer's problem. Nursery education is very important to the county borough. What I can tell you is where we've had reorganisation issues in the past, No, it has never been a prohibitor to children attending nurseries, and we do have examples across the county borough where parents said exactly the same thing. They wouldn't be able to attend nursery, and actually the evidence suggests that actually every child in those areas does actually who are in reception did attend nursery. So we do know that whatever arrangements they put in place for themselves for their children to attend nursery, they do get there. So, but I do accept that it's an issue which some parents will find difficulty with. In terms of breakfast club, I think the reference to where it works previously is best described in Ynysfarch. Again, parents said exactly the same thing. We wouldn't. Our children won't be able to attend breakfast club, but what happens there is the governors and the head teachers of the school arrange well, actually, it's true for the after-school clubs as well. They have a responsibility to ensure that all the pupils in their school can attend breakfast club and can attend extracurricular activities, whether that be during the day or whether it be after school. It is a responsibility of the head teacher and the governing body. In terms of breakfast club, if a school asks us to put a breakfast club on, the local authority has a legal responsibility to do that. The times that it's arranged is a matter for the governing body in consultation with the school community. So that would be my response. Rhiannon, I'm not sure, do you have anything further to add around those issues? No? No.
Councillor Purcell.
Sorry, thank you. Right, sorry, I muted myself again. Right, my second area of concern is to do with community impact. Basically, what do we consider to be a community? A community is far more than just the school, and I was delighted to take part in the community impact assessment run by Paul Hinder. In my village, for example, which surrounds Llangwch School, a community is the school, the care home, the shop, and the town council run park, and they're all totally interconnected. For example, on page 332, your report identifies, and I quote, intergenerational work being carried out by Llangwch pupils and Dan Bryn risk being lost, and mentions the link between the school and Mount Elim Evangelical Church, which coincidentally also links very closely with the care home. So they're totally and completely independent on each other. Your report also quotes the work with Friends of Ynys Park will be hampered by the children being more remote. All the above that I've cited are within very close walking distance of each other. You identify the risks, you actually use the word remote. So I would like officers to justify your statement on page 71, which says there will be no adverse effect to the wider community. I'd like you to please explain that statement when I get to the end of this section. Now we come to the shop. Even before the pandemic, we realised how crucial was our local shop to the well-being of the community. And if you just bear with me, if I give two true examples, an elderly lady with no family, whose mental capacity was declining, who was totally supported by the local shop, who had me and her social worker on speed dial before she finally went to residential care. And secondly, the very elderly gentleman shopping there, who then walks up a very, very steep hill to home, he's still doing it at 88, for whom the shop rings the taxi when the weather's bad and they feel he isn't safe. Neither of these two residents drive. Unofficial counselling takes place there. If problems can't be solved by the people in the shop, the advice is usually go and ring Lynette. This shop will not survive financially without the passing trade of the mums and the other parents walking past to school. We are all being told to shop local and that the local shops were invaluable in the days of COVID. So in summary, the existence of this very strong community in Ynys made recruiting street champions simple. And we have a contradiction here. On one hand, I assume that the council still has an aim to create safe, strong and resilient communities. Believe me, we've got one of those in Ynys. On the other hand, your report recommends the demolition of this community spirit. Can officers explain, therefore, how threatening the existence of this close-knit, effective community relates to the Council's wellbeing objective number 2 in the Corporate Plan 21 to 23, which says, everyone participates fully in community life, socially and economically. Thank you.
Again, I'm not sure that we've included in our report the demolition of community spirit. Those are your words, not officers' words. I think it's important to understand that a school does provide an important role within a community, but again, from experience, where we have undertaken school reorganisation proposals in places where people have claimed that we will take the lifeblood of the village, again, that is not the case. Communities are far more than the bricks and mortar of the school that the school provides within a community. You know, you've got to understand, children attend a school for 190 days a year between the hours of approximately 8:30 and 3 o'clock. They live in their communities, they exist, they socialise in their communities. The opportunities that they have for intergenerational working that you referred to earlier are not lost if the school is closed. As I say, the community spirit is far greater than anything which is generated within the bricks and mortar, albeit schools are an important component of that. I think the reason the report is written in the way it is because it's a very frank and honest appraisal of the impacts on the community. And I think, again, if members take decisions later on to progress this proposal, it's really important that they have the full facts and, you know, these things aren't sort of sugar-coated. It's not sensible to think that to undertake a £22.5 million reorganisation scheme, that there will not be consequences. I think what we have to consider is whether the overall benefits of this proposal outweigh some of the negative aspects of the reorganisation proposals. And sorry, Lynette, just to pick up on your issue about the wellbeing objective too. Sorry, I'm remiss of me. In terms of what I think we're creating at Park and Estero, where the pupils come together and the staff are together, the school community there, I think, will be very, very significant. The health and well-being aspects of the proposal linked to the additional support for children with additional learning need, plus the key stage cross key stage phase work with Cwmtawi School. I think we can point to the fact that we will be satisfying our wellbeing objective 2 within this proposal.
Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you. Just to come back to what Andrew said, that he's more or less suggesting that I'm saying things that are not in the report. It actually says on page 332 that the intergenerational work being carried out by Llangwg pupils and Dana Bryn risk being lost. That's what I'm picking up on. It mentions the link between the school and Mount Elim. It also says the work with Friends of Ynys Park will be hampered by them being more remote. So what I was basically picking up on is you are saying that, but then you're then saying that you're creating this, that you're having no adverse effect on the community. And I'm just taking issue with that. However, we'll move on to the third issue, which is the traffic. Now, honestly, this is the thing that I am being approached about more than anything else. And it's not just by the parents of school children or future school children. It's basically from anybody who visits the retail park, who visits the leisure centre, anybody who has the vaguest knowledge of Pontardawe in its current existence has concerns about this. So, picking up my specific points and then referring to what you said in your overall introduction, I've picked up Estyn on page 99 says, the proposer does not appear to consider the effect of increased traffic and accessibility issues to the site if over 600 pupils were to attend the new school. That's Estyn's comment, not mine, not yours. As a ward member and the governor of Cwmtawe, I am very, very aware of the current issues with access. An education officer, as you know, visited the school a few years ago between 8 and 9 a.m. with just the Cwmtawe pupils on site and identified not one, but multiple problems with the current access. And again, to help colleagues who are not familiar with Pontardawe to understand, there is one road in and one road out. It runs through a busy retail park with shops on both sides of the road, and the road serves currently both the school and the leisure centre. Now, before I go to my specific questions, I was grateful for your introduction saying that the contractor will be told to deal with this. But what you didn't mention was the road. You talked about how the contractor would be obliged to create better drop-off points and more staff parking. Believe me, that is not the issue. The issue is the road. So your report acknowledges that this will be subject to planning consent. Question 1, is there a plan B should highways look at this and refuse to support it? Question 2, related, how does this proposal fit in with the Council's presumed support for Active Travel Act 2013? Also, as this is the main issue being cited by all respondents, whereas your report states that the scheme would seek to improve the current arrangements on the Park and Ysteru site, which sounds very good. The community would have really appreciated more detail on this. A public meeting, even online, would have helped. And this, for colleagues who don't know Pontardawe, is the issue. It's not creating a car park that's better and more drop-off points, it's the road. If you are going to improve the current arrangements at Park and Ysteru site, you have to try and give us a clue as to how you're going to do this. Geographically, this site is bounded with a river and a sheltered housing complex on one side, steep valley sides and a canal on the other. The only way people speaking to me in the community can see that this problem could be solved is to build a new road. And that has actually been mentioned informally to me by somebody. If that proved to be the case, how would that happen and where would the money be coming from? Thank you.
Right, quite a lot. I'm going to try and pick out of your the questions. In terms of, I think the first question was around, is there a plan B if we don't get planning permission? Is that fair? Yeah, and the answer to that is no. We've always said that whatever scheme that a contractor would come up with would need to meet our rigorous planning requirements, and that's again completely right and proper. We have had conversations with our highways and planning people, obviously, and you would expect us to do that, and they have not led us to believe that a contractor couldn't come up with a scheme which would meet our planning requirements. I know I mentioned staff car parking and people drop off, but there are other measures which having a, if you like, a blank piece of paper scheme that in terms of what the school would be introduced. What they are, I do not know. But they could literally be anything, and Lynette, and whatever they come up with and whatever the cost is, that will be included within the 21st Century Schools funding for the new school. So this, and that's why I see this as an opportunity to greatly improve the situation, not just obviously for the pupils in the new school, but for Cwmtawi School, because as you quite rightly say, as a governor, there are some very difficult situations there every morning. So I see this as a benefit and an opportunity, not a threat, because the planning application that will be made, if we get that far, will obviously be subject to public consultation, and people will be able to comment on that as they see fit. I don't want to give anybody the impression here today that I know what they are and I'm not telling you. I literally, this scheme has not got that far yet. So please don't think that, give you a clue. I haven't got a clue what they are yet, but I do know that for it to pass planning, the cost of any scheme would be included within the funding envelope of the 21st Century Schools programme.
Councillor Anthony Richards, I see you have a question which probably relates to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Diolch Cadeirydd. Absolutely, I agree with Councillor Purcell. The centre of Pontardawe is already severely congested, and in member surgeries for every year that I've been a councillor, and I'm told by Councillor Purcell in every year that she's been a councillor, we have continuously raised issues on behalf of residents who continuously raised this in the town council on Monday night. The road was picked up again. It is a dangerous road. Officers from Neath Talbot have already stated that the A474 Herbert Street bypass, that they have rejected the introduction of safe crossing points as it will impact on vehicles and must not slow movements. It's not possible to erect a pelican crossing, I was told last year or the year before, and it wasn't possible to erect a pelican crossing because the road passes over a river which prevents engineering work, because it will cause again traffic to back up on a very busy roundabout and could potentially create a serious traffic hazard. And again, I'm quoting what the officers have said here. So, you know, I'd love to know what risks have been acted upon. Why have those risks not been acted upon before? I know there's a budget now for that, but if the engineering work couldn't take place before, why can the engineering take place now? And for pedestrians travelling from, for example, the Alltwen area, where are the safe crossing points?
Well, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I just know that the routes have been assessed as safe for secondary age pupils, Anthony, but what they are for primary age pupils haven't been assessed yet. Just in terms, I just again want to make sure that I make it very clear. Sorry, I'm keeping getting messages from people. I want to make it very clear that when I talk about the funding from the 21st century schools, it's the fund improvement work to enable the planning application for the school to go ahead. So there isn't funding for improvement works per se. If the school goes ahead, whatever the planning requirements are for the school improvement, the road improvement works, that's what there will be funding for. So just to draw that distinction, so you don't think that all of a sudden there's going to be funding for pelican crossings. If pelican crossings are required for the new school, then yes, there is funding for them, but it's not a it's not a funding mechanism for school road improvement works per se. Just to draw that distinction.
Can I just come in and remind members of the public that they are here to observe the meeting and should not participate in the meeting. So please do not attempt to speak or make comments. Thank you. Thank you for your involvement, but you're here to observe. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Richards. Did you have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. How, therefore, have you been able to negotiate the budgets on this when obviously this work hasn't been undertaken? And how are you, if, for example, all of this extra additional work needs to be done for the pupils? Maybe Councillor Peter Rees, the Cabinet member, wants to say, he's shaking his head profusely. Maybe he'd like to answer the question. How therefore, are you budgeting? What if you find that there is a substantial cost that far outweighs the current monies that have been granted or will be granted by the Welsh Government?
Thanks, Anthony. There are substantial sums of money built into the £22.5 million already, but if that cost exceeds what we've currently got within our budget, then there is an opportunity to go back to Welsh Government and ask for additional funding under what is known as abnormals.
Okay, so we haven't got an answer, no?
Yeah, I'll just give you the answer.
I think the answer was quite clear there, Councillor Richards. Can I go back to Councillor Purcell and ask if you finished your line of questioning?
No,
Yeah,
just,
of course.
sorry, coming up to my fourth section, but I think Councillor Phillips indicated, I wondered whether it was joining in on what myself and Councillor Richards had said, as she has members of her community who attend Cwmtawa School. But it's up to you, Chair. Do you want me to carry on, or Councillor Phillips?
Certainly, Councillor Phillips, would you like to ask your subsidiary?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Rebecca Phillips, Trebarnos Ward member. Yeah, I just think it's crucial that we actually have clarification over the use of the 21st century money, and that can't be used to rectify the current traffic and congestion problems that we have in Pontardawe. I think it's very important we have clarity over that, because from what Andrew initially said, it sounded as if the money for the school could be used to solve those problems for the community. Thank you.
Andrew, would you like to respond
happy.
again?
Yeah, certainly. The funding, as is identified in the report, comes from two sources. There's the local authority funding and Welsh Government funding. Those areas which are ineligible from 21st Century Schools from Welsh Government will be picked up by the local authority funding element, as is the case in every scheme that we've ever developed.
So the local authority would be able to fund the road now, but it hasn't for all the years that the congestion has been an issue there?
As part of its match funding towards the 21st Century Schools programme, not
Right.
per se, as I explained to Councillor Richards earlier.
Thank you for that.
Okay, Councillor Purcell.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, and thank you for your patience, Chair. This is the fourth and final section of what I wanted to refer to and the questions that I wanted to ask. I think somebody's not muted. I'm getting some background noise. Don't know who it is. It's just with me being hearing impaired, it's a bit tricky. Never mind, I'll carry on. Right, page 365 refers to the Wellbeing Act. It's right at the end of 5 hours worth of reading, but we got there. It says it requires the council to think of the long-term impact of their decisions, to work better with people, communities, to prevent persistent problems such as poverty, health inequalities, and climate change. The bit I found most interesting was it says it requires public bodies to work towards all of the 7 goals, not just 1 or 2. My community tell me they are not convinced that you have borne this act in mind, as by possibly, we debate this later, possibly preventing the most vulnerable children from accessing nursery by removing their local school, which they can access on foot. You are not creating a more equal Wales. Secondly, by increasing inevitably the use of cars to transport children to school, you are not creating a globally responsible Wales. And most frustratingly of all, particularly here in Ynys by threatening vibrant communities such as ours, you are not creating a Wales of cohesive communities. Could the officer please tell us how the proposal addresses these 3 requirements? And then I come on to my very final point, I'll leave that one with Andrew for a second, which is to do about the consultation. Those of you who've been in a situation similar to ourselves will understand how upset some people have been. Stressed parents have been questioning me since October 2017 when this first appeared. My answer constantly to them has been, don't worry, it will not be done behind closed doors. There will be a consultation. You will have plenty of chances to respond. This is in fact backed up by your report when you state on page 77, the council will conscientiously take into account the responses before finalising its decision. And in fact, I asked in October 2020, would there be a possibility of the proposal being amended in response to the consultation? Can officers please demonstrate to us how this report before us in any way takes into account the many responses to this consultation? And the reason I ask this is the community in general across the wider Pontardawe area have reason to suspect that this decision had already been taken many years ago. As a former cabinet member living in this area, was in the habit of freely discussing this locally prior even to 2017, as some officers and councillors and former retired officers will well remember. On page 34 in the risk management, 183 identifies potential risks to the council's reputation. It is essential that to protect this council's reputation, we prove that we are listening to and can restore the community's faith in the council. How can we do that? Page 77 again states, should the proposal be rejected, the process stops. And when the officers have answered my final questions and we eventually come to a vote, I would suggest that the remedy is in your hands. Thank you.
Well, the first time that officers brought a report forward, which included these schools, was when we put a strategic outline programme to members in 2017. So as far as I'm concerned, that was the start of this process. And as you know, Lynette, at that time, it was thought to be a 3 to 16 proposal, including the Cymtawi school, and some informal consultation led to us dropping that proposal, and indeed one of the other primary schools mentioned. So in terms of it being a done deal, like, you know, as I said earlier, around pupil numbers and other schools being included in this, it just is not the case. I'm not going to comment on what current or former elected members have said or haven't said, because it's not my job to do so. In terms of the consultation process, as I said earlier, what we've done has been looked at by Council. Quite clearly, we always have done public meetings. On this occasion, because of the pandemic, we weren't able to, and it just wasn't legally possible. So, but we have consulted far and wide, and the number of consultation responses we've seen obviously, shows that the message is out there far and wide, and plenty of people have consulted, and we extended the consultation period to make sure that people were able to respond accordingly.
Thank you. That was going to be my final point, but he has not answered the question. Can officers demonstrate to us how this report before us in any way has responded to the responses to the consultation? We know what the people are saying. We know what the statistics are, the number of people in favour of this who responded and the number of people who were not. Can they show us anything in the report which shows that they have responded to the people's opinion which was expressed during this consultation? And after that, you'll be delighted to know I have no more to say.
What we're required to do as part of this process is consult with people to understand their views and produce the consultation report, which we've done. And there's I think, a full response to each one of the consultation themes identified by the people. None of those consultation issues raised by the public have led us to believe that we are doing anything which should either modify or stop what we are currently proposing, which is why the recommendation today is to proceed. We're required to necessarily amend our scheme if we think something is worthy of making sure that we either stop or amend the scheme. As I say, we've heard nothing to suggest that we should amend or stop what we are currently proposing, but it's a member decision that they'll decide later today.
Councillor Anthony Richards, have you got something further to say that's pertinent? Because I have a list of people waiting to comment.
Yeah, it is, as you stated at the beginning, because Councillor Purcell brought something up about the consultation. I'm happy to go with my turn, or I can come in with these questions about the consultation now.
In that case, yeah. I'll ask you to wait and we'll go through, because some of the things you wanted to ask may already have been notified by other people at the in the early stage. So if we go that way.
I'm happy to do that, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch, Gadeirydd. Firstly, I'd actually like to thank our Chief Executive for the opening remarks regarding the previous leader of this council. It is true that residents, especially those in the Swansea Valley, have lost faith in this council. By listening to the responses to this consultation, the council has the opportunity to prove that it is a listening council, as we are consistently told. Page 29 of the report, point 148, makes reference to the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act, referencing the Wales we want. The Wales we want in the Swansea Valley is one where communities thrive, our children are taught locally and are able to reach their educational potential. The Wales we want is one where residents are listened to, respected and consulted with. I echo the concerns of my fellow councillors, especially regarding the major concerns regarding traffic and transport. As a local resident, I know I need to avoid the Cymtawi school area during school run times, morning and afternoon. The area comes to a standstill. How can we support this proposal when this issue remains unaddressed? Additionally, if there is a magic solution to address this issue, Why wait until this new school is built? Why hasn't action been taken previously? Continuing with transport, with local schools being moved out of our communities, making it almost impossible for pupils to walk, scooter or cycle to school, this proposal will go against the Welsh Government Travel Act. Have officers had any discussions with the Welsh Government regarding this, and will there be any penalties for the Council in future times to come? I would now like to focus on the impact of the Welsh language in the Swansea Valley. I am aware that...
Can I suggest that maybe we ask the officers to answer those first points and then we'll move on? Yeah,
that's fine.
your next question.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the active travel, obviously Welsh Government have approved the business case, the funding for this. So there's no penalties in terms of that because they're providing 65% of the funding for it. But what we will do again when the scheme is designed, we will build in as many as is possible in terms of the route, so that people's, when you talk about people's being able to walk and cycle and school, that will be built into the design of the new school and the routes accordingly. And I dealt with the issue around traffic management and the cost and the way it's funded earlier in my response to Anthony Richards and Lynette, so I won't repeat myself.
Fine, thank you for that, Andrew. I'd just now like to focus on the impact of the Welsh language in the Swansea Valley. I am aware that RAG, the Parents for Welsh Language Education, have stated that from their experience across Wales, parents consider distance to school as an important factor in choosing Welsh medium education. It is therefore unavoidable that this new school at the centre of Pontardawe will affect the numbers attending Welsh medium schools in the area. How, therefore, will the authority promote Welsh language education to avoid this problem?
Well, as I said earlier, that might be RAG's view, but it's certainly not our experience. And I cited the example in the east of the county borough where we opened a brand new English medium schools, and the numbers of the local Welsh school went up and continue to rise. As I say, to the point where we are probably going to have to provide a new school for that school as part of the Welsh Government capital funding this time around. So it's just not our experience that. And as I said earlier, we've invested heavily in Welsh medium education in the Swansea Valley as well. So, as I say, members will be copied into the response that we send to RAG after this meeting.
I think we do have to acknowledge, Andrew, that every community is very different, and the Swansea Valley is very unique. And I would say as well, a point which I will come to later, Trebarna School has not received funding at any point over the vast number of years, and that obviously is my concern, which I will turn to later on. At the bottom of page 74, which states that as a result of the consultation and consideration of existing data and evidence, the following mitigating actions are recommended. Longer-term monitoring is required to ascertain any impact on wider community Welsh language issues and the monitoring of parental choice. Can we please have information on how this will be done and what action will be taken if this shows negative impact? Is it not a case of too little, too late?
No, I don't think it's a case of too little, too late at all. I think this will be picked up as part of our next Welsh and Education Strategic Plan, which we're required to submit to Welsh Government for approval in January. We intend to bring a draft report, a draft tenure west to members, this forum, in late September, early October, I believe. But these issues around monitoring and whatever mitigation measures we would need to put in place will be better picked up in our WESP, because one that's a county borough strategic document which will cover, but it will pick up on the discrete issues within the various locations in Neath, Talbot, as you say, Councillor Phillips, because the Swansea Valley is a important linguistic area in terms of Welsh language, and our Welsh plan will have to reflect that when we put it together, when we compile it.
What assurances do we have that you will protect Welsh schools in the area from closure as a result of this development?
Well, I said earlier that, and categorically that there's no plans to close any further schools in the Swansea Valley to put pupils into this. If things happen, obviously that are unpredictable, then that's not a carte blanche, but we'll have to respond to whatever those circumstances are at the time. But as I say, I still stick by there are no plans to close any further schools in the Swansea Valley as a part of this proposal, and I can't make it really any clearer than that, to be honest, Rebecca.
But you can either give us assurances either, Andrew. Thank you. In closing, this proposal has been rejected by the local community, and it is our duty as elected members to listen and act on the number of concerns raised. In addition to these local concerns, a number of bodies responsible for the development of the Welsh language, Prag, Tirgwryd, members of the Senedd, are also asking for the effect on the Welsh language to be reconsidered. All this in a location where this authority deems linguistically significant area, as it contains the highest number and percentages of Welsh speakers in Neath and Talbot. Unless serious mitigation measures can be put in place, it seems impossible to support this proposal. But thank you for answering my questions, Andrew.
The only thing thank you for that. The only thing I will respond, Rebecca, is that there is a full Welsh language impact assessment, obviously, as part of this package of reports. I reiterate, we really don't believe that this will have a detrimental impact on Welsh medium education, for the reasons I've explained previously. So I won't repeat those, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Nigel Hunt, have you got a subsidiary that relates to this?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have really, to do with the Welsh language and going off what Officer Andrew Thomas said. Yeah, actually, I feel quite privileged today to be able to speak on such an issue that's such pivotal to education in the Swansea Valley as a county council. I have never lived in the Swansea Valley, but my children did go to school in Yslavera, and they had a first-class education there, and I know what a wonderful place it is to be educated. And also, I'm proud of this county, and at the moment there's a Welsh football team out in the Euro Championships, and three of that squad are from Neath and Talbot. I'm very, very proud of that. Two of whom went to Yslavera in the Swansea Valley, Ben Davis and Ruben Colwell, and also Conor Roberts used to play outside half for Abercrave in rugby. So I know that what a great area it is in the Swansea Valley. But the point I'd like to make really is that we keep talking about Rosalind and about Awel. Well, there's a massive correlation there with Brody, not Awel anymore. The reason why Rosalind numbers are doing ever so well is because of the new school in Brody. So I think that isn't the best example. I think what Councillor Phillips is saying about the impact on the Welsh language in the Swansea Valley is real, and that's why other parties are also advising this. And yeah, I just want to say, well, Rosalind's numbers are going up as a result of my youngest two children go to school on the same estate that they're brought up in, but my older two children had to travel over 20 miles a day, 40 miles a day really, 20 miles each way to Yslavera. So that is why so many people in the Talbot area are choosing Welsh education now. So I just want to back up Councillor Phillips on that, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, Nigel. My response to that would be, and probably Brody does have an influence on the numbers at Rosalind, but the numbers in Rosalind have been increasing prior to Brody opening. So they've been going up since 2013, and Brody didn't open until September 2017. But it probably is having an impact. I wouldn't argue with you there.
Thank you. In that case, have you finished with your points, Councillor Rebecca Phillips?
Yes, for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, we move on to Councillor Rosalind Davis.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you very much. I'm Rosalind Davis and I'm the Councillor for Godricraig Ward. I won't go into the chaos that's in Pontardawe. It's already been brought up. But agenda item number 5, page 5, number 13, it states, according to the report, Pontardawe is considered as a catchment area for this proposed primary school for pupils who live in Yslavera, Godricraig, Yet the authority tell prospective pupils who wish to attend Ysgol Gymraeg Pontardawe, who live in Godricraig, that Pontardawe is not in their catchment area. Can you please explain that?
Yeah, certainly. It comes down to the nearest suitable school. Obviously, we're talking about Welsh medium education, and the nearest suitable Welsh medium education for pupils living in Godricraig, of course, is the new school at Yslavera, the new primary school at Yslavera. So it's part of our commitment to ensure that Welsh medium education thrives. And we obviously developed that school there. It's a 3 to 19 school, and we would expect those pupils who live in Godricraig, if they want Welsh medium education, to be educated in Yslavera, as it's their nearest suitable Welsh language school. And it's also important actually for our transport policy to make sure that we can transport Welsh medium pupils to their nearest suitable school, and suitable being Welsh school.
Well, Pontardawe has not been considered as a catchment area for pupils who attend Godricraig all these years, but there we are. Another question is, how do you expect teaching staff in the proposed new school to be able, and of course next year as well, as far as Godricraig Primary is concerned, that is, to be able to teach what is part of the new curriculum named Cynefin to those who live in Yslavera and Godricraig, when they live 4 or 5 miles away from Pontardawe, compared to if they attended a local community school and were able to explore the area where they live in a safe manner.
The truth is, we would expect the leadership of the new school, should it happen, to be able to deliver all aspects of the curriculum. And obviously, you're referring now to the exploration and the sort of the understanding of the local environment, the habitat within the Godricraig area. We would expect the school to come up with innovative ideas around how children can understand the place in which they live. The school doesn't have to be in that locale, so that for those pupils to understand that. There's many ways, but it'll be a matter for the school and the school leadership team plus the governing body to ensure that not just that aspect of the new curriculum, but all aspects of the new curriculum are delivered and met.
Okay. Also, regarding the school budget for the proposed new school, will depend on the number of pupils on roll.
Correct.
Well, I can tell you now that parents from Yslavera Godricraig are already considering sending their children of nursery age, especially, across the border to Powys instead of Godricraig Primary at present, which is based in Pontardawe. So the chances are there will be quite a big decrease of children that will be on roll if the school goes ahead in 2024.
Obviously, if there's room in the school that the parent wants to send their child to, that's a parental right, and I think that's absolutely right and proper. It's certainly not something that we've got experience of. It's not something that we would want to happen, but we absolutely respect the parents' position in terms of their parental preference.
But surely, I mean, as a council, the children who live in Neath Talbot should be educated by the authority of Neath Talbot.
Absolutely our preference, Ros, always, other than obviously pupils with high-end special needs, where obviously education outside the county is the best thing for them. But yeah, would hope that doesn't happen, but you know, respect the parental choice. Respect the parental choice.
It's happening now. You stated earlier as well regarding that there was a 25% of teachers already in Godricraig, Llanguwch and Alltwen schools who were more or less fluent in Welsh. Well, how many teachers are there really? Because I know for a fact there isn't one teacher in Godricraig School who was able to speak Welsh.
It's actually, the term is fairly fluent or fluent, so it's
I
not
know that.
fluent. It's one or the other, and those are the HR records that we have as those individuals have sort of describe themselves. So it's an amalgam of the 3 schools, and clearly if you say there's nobody in Godricraig, any of the staff who are fluent or fairly fluent, then clearly it's members of staff from the other 2 schools.
Okay. Now then, this is agenda item 8, page 173, item number 107. Now, even though the unexpected closure of Godricraig school site is not considered part of the consultation, it is mentioned in the report that Godricraig school pupils who are supposedly in temporary accommodation are expected to remain in their unsuitable present location near Tower School until the proposed school is opened in September 2024. Now, expecting the school to be in its present location is not a temporary location from September 2019 to September 2024, which is totally unacceptable.
It's certainly a long time. I wouldn't disagree with that. Obviously, you're aware of the circumstances which led to the temporary relocation as it was in terms of Godricraig. You also know that there's reports commissioned at the moment to understand the remedial position up there. If this school reorganisation proposal fails, then the pupils still can't go back to the original Godricraig school buildings until such time as, if they are able to be, and we'll understand that better in the very near future once we get the report. But if they can't return there at the moment because there is a risk to them. If it isn't possible to mediate or mitigate that risk, and this proposal fails, then we'll have to consider other options for those pupils. There isn't any other land capable of building a school this size, so we'll have to consider what other options there are available to us in terms of educating those people, because obviously we have a legal responsibility to do so.
Well, can I state, I have asked a question, how much consideration has really been given to build a new school in the Godricraig ward? Because, to be fair, you know, there should be. We deserve a school to be built in Godricraig because it serves the northernmost part of the Swansea Valley through English medium education. And you state that there isn't anywhere favourable that it could be built. Well,
no,
sorry,
Ros. When we say there's nowhere big enough to build a school of the size we're talking about, there is potentially land to build a new Godricraig primary school, which is something that came forward. I think it's referred to as the Knoll site.
I know that.
Yeah.
But you didn't look for any other sites in the Godricraig ward at all.
In terms of just for Godricraig?
Yes.
I think we did look at 1 or 2 other sites which were ruled out, but I think the one that is able to be developed is the Knoll. It does have some issues with it, undoubtedly. It would probably be an expensive site to develop. Our highways people have said that it would be an extremely costly, and you know that's a capital cost to facilitate traffic in and out of there. But again, not impossible. But what I would say is, obviously, if we went down that road, the whole process stops. We would have to submit business cases back to Welsh Government. We couldn't just assume that Welsh Government would agree to a new school for Llangwch and Alltwen and a new pool. That business case would literally fall over and we'd have to start again, and there's no guarantee that we get that funding. The other thing I would say, to build, even if Welsh Government did approve a new Llangwch Alltwen size school plus swimming pool, and a separate school for Godricraig, conservatively, that's an extra £2.3 million capital funding, which may or may not be a sort of showstopper in terms of Welsh Government. It's certainly more costly for us as well as Welsh Government, so they probably wouldn't approve it. But notwithstanding the capital element of it, the school budget share for a combined Alltwen and Llangwch plus a separate Godricraig compared to a combined 3-school option, even when we take off the extra cost for transport, is over £500,000 a year more. And that when we prudentially borrow for our new schools, we borrow over 40 years because it's a new asset. So over 40 years, that would be in excess of £20 million. In terms of our business case to Welsh Government, we plan over 60 years. So that's obviously 30 million or more than £30 million. And because there's not any more money going into the delegated schools budget, that funding would be coming from every other primary school in Neath, Talbot, would be subsidising that standalone school in Godricraig over and above the proposal that we're consulting on. So we have given it consideration, and we don't think it's an effective use of public funding. So it isn't right to say we haven't given it consideration.
But there is another site in Horsens Road that could be used, but you haven't even looked at that.
To be honest, it's
I
the
did
site.
that. I do
Right?
seriously believe that Godricraig should be treated as a special case. That's what happened over the years since the landslide in 1959. No investment has gone into the ward more, really. The only facility that the council has provided in Godricraig ward itself is Godricraig Primary School, and now that can't be used. There aren't any other facilities available. I do wish you could ask that. I think we are really a special case, with all due respect.
As I said, the site and having a site to develop isn't really the issue. The additional capital funding obviously is significant, but what is most significant is the additional revenue cost year on year for the next 40 years of over £500,000 a year that the school community will have to bear, or they'll all sort of share their burden of that. And I think that's the big value for money issue in terms of what you're proposing.
Councillor Davies.
It hasn't finished yet.
Can we move on then? And the next on the list to speak is, I will go to them, but just to say, Councillor Simon Noyle, I am aware that you'd like to speak and have added you to the list, and I'm aware of the IT problems you might be having. So we'll try and get hold of you when that comes about. So next to speak is Councillor Marcia Spooner.
Thank you, Chair. We've just been talking about finances there now. I don't know if Director of Finance wants to answer, but the funding application we've got from the Welsh Government, that's been approved, you said earlier, Andrew.
Yes.
Are there any sort of provisions on it? Have we got timescales if we don't open, if it does go ahead and we don't open in time in September 2024, will there be sort of penalties on us on it?
No penalties. The only thing we have to be careful of is obviously the Welsh Government spending on hours are planned over a period of time. So whenever we've got, in terms of our band at the moment, we regularly update them in terms of how much we think we're going to be spending in terms of capital. And of course, Welsh Government have that information from all 22 authorities across Wales, so that they can fund their commitments across Wales for these programmes. But there's no financial penalty if it was to be delayed a year. And we've had schemes which have been put back a term or a year, and there's no financial penalty to that.
So we won't lose that funding, and there's no reason to rush ahead with it either then.
That's a different issue. We might not lose the funding. It depends what happens. But if members decided today not to progress this, yeah, that funding then is back into the pot for everybody to apply for. If we went forward and for whatever reason didn't deliver it till September 25, the only thing I would say about that is, as Rosalind said earlier, those pupils are in temporary accommodation in next to Cwmtawi. We wouldn't lose it then, because it's about a programming issue then, not a process issue, if you like. So obviously, if members didn't approve it today, there's a process issue, and we've got to scrap everything and go back to the drawing board. So in those cases, then that funding the Welsh Government have earmarked for Neath Talbot will go back into the All Wales pot, and who knows what would happen to it.
Okay, so second question is to do with the land down on Parc Ynys and part of the report says they're subject to a deed of dedication. Now, the report also says that a formal application is imminent to Field's interest. Has that application gone in? And do we know where the alternative parcel of land is going to be, please?
I don't know if the application's actually been submitted. There have been detailed conversations with the Fields and Trust people, complicated by the fact that the individual in that organisation changed recently, so that probably has delayed things. But they're very supportive of it, and I think the donor sites or the substitute sites are in the Glanreed area. That's what I know at the moment. Yeah, but they're very supportive of it.
So what if they refuse our application? Are we scuppered then?
Well, we've got no reason to believe that they're going to refuse the application because we've been dealing with them now for about the last 14 months. So they haven't said anything negative. And to be honest, we've done land deals with them, well, across the county body many times, but also on the Park and Estero site, because I'm old enough to remember when we go back to developing the bowls hall at Pontarddulais, and we had to do exactly the same thing then. So yeah, as long as they get their equal or additional land elsewhere, they're pretty accommodating, to be fair.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Spooner. Councillor Wyndham Griffiths, please.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, Andrew.
Afternoon.
I think some of my question has already been asked by Councillor Richards, but on a specific, in the A470 over from Bryncoch, where I'm a councillor, it's a very busy road, and it all culminates down at the roundabout at the bottom of Pontarddulais. And I was just wondering, with the safe travel routes to school, pupils coming from Allwen were walking, will have to come down and then cross over the bridge, or down to the roundabout, which is it becomes a busy 4-lane road. What provision is the council going to provide for the safe route to school down there, especially across the bridge? I mean, we have some work going on in Bryncoch at the moment, and I believe that the criteria is that the safe route to school measurements, they're about 3 meters wide. How will we do that on that bridge? And what happens at the bottom of the bridge, where the roundabout is, where there's a very, very busy road? It's terrible to pull out the car, though, the child trying to cross. And about are we going to put crossings down there? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wyndham. The short answer is I don't know, but what I can tell you is what will happen to establish what is needed there, if it is to be deemed a suitable walking route. It is deemed, as I say, a suitable walking route at the moment for secondary age children, but of course that's different. And if this scheme progresses at the appropriate time, those routes will be assessed by the officers that we have within the Environment Directorate, who are qualified to assess suitable walking routes. And if traffic, I won't say traffic calming, that's wrong. If physical interventions need to be put in place to make them suitable, then that's what will happen, and that'll be deemed by those officers, and they'll be funded, as I say, from 21st century. If those routes can't be deemed to be suitable to walk, and don't forget, even with primary age children, the term is accompanied accompanied by an adult as is suitable. Then obviously they won't be suitable walking routes, and then transport will be provided for those pupils. Sorry, it's just somebody coming in. So I don't know what the exact nature of the design will be at the moment, Wyndham, but I can tell you what the process will be. And if it isn't possible to make those routes suitable, then obviously we'll have to provide transport for those pupils, because it has to be a suitable walking route. But I do agree with you, it is a busy roundabout. I know it well.
Thank you very much. On mute, Chair.
Thank you. You can hear other people talking in the chamber. It's very confusing. So yeah, can we move on to Councillor Rydian Mism, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Rydian Mism, Councillor for Bryn and Carmarthen. Thanks for all your answers, Andrew, and your patience. This is going to be a short one. It's about the funding, it is. Now, I know it's for match funding, but our sort of contribution to the council is about 8 million, around 8 million. And you also stated there's a maintenance backlog of 2 million plus 1.2 million for the pool. Now, I don't know what condition the schools were in, how old they are, but I'm only thinking of, like our Carmarthen school is I doubt they're older than that, about 100-year-old. We got 450 pupils there. You have to sort of keep our school in pretty tip-top condition because there's nowhere else they can go. I'm just wondering, so with the money taking out the backlog, leave about 5 million, was there ever any consideration of using that money to perhaps maintain the upkeep of the other schools? And I know there's an issue with Godric Graig, but say Aswen and Llangewg or whatever.
Yeah, I think I need to explain the way the building maintenance for schools outside of the 21st Century Schools programme works. We have a sum of money, 1.2 every year, which is available to maintain all our primary school estate. That money is allocated on a building surveyor's assessment of worst case first. So the worst buildings, the most pressing issues, those issues which may lead to some sort of business continuity are funded, which can mean that many schools can go years without any money being spent on them other than what schools spend themselves, because 1.2 million pounds, by the time you take out all the statutory functions, into the hardwire testing, the Legionnaires and all the rest of it, it doesn't leave an awful lot. At least a third of it goes on statutory testing. So the £3 million, I think it's £2 million for the school and £1.2 million for the pool. So if we ignore the pool for a second, because the £1.2 million is just for education, if we were to address the building maintenance backlog issues within the 3 schools, then no school would get any building maintenance money whatsoever for 2 years, and there's significant risks to that because important work happens every year to our school estate. But the other thing I think you need to remember is that money, even if it isn't to bring a school up to a 21st century school standard, it is just to keep the school open. So if we replace the boilers in Llangewg, it doesn't increase the size of the classrooms or the circulation spaces or the hall or the canteen. It doesn't give them a blade of grass for the children to play on, during break times and lunch times and after school activities. It is purely money just to keep schools open, keeping them safe and functioning. It is not about enhancing those schools. And I think that's probably the significant difference between 21st century schools. Welsh Government back in 2010, I think it was, my memory fades, they took a strategic approach to replacing and upgrading schools in Wales, and it is the right thing to do. It is meant to be transformational, which is why we've been, successful over the last 10 years. If this school goes ahead, it'll be £200 million into our school estate. Even then, we'll still have something like £76 million, I think it is, backlog maintenance in our schools. So, it's difficult. We're running just to stand still. But the 21st Century Schools capital funding, Welsh Government funding, and our own prudential borrowing through efficiencies enables us to give children a different learning environment, whereas the capital money that we have available to us as the council, £1.2 million, just keeps schools open, to be blunt. So that's the difference.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the answer, Andrew.
Councillor Llewellyn and Councillor Hale, are these subsidiaries to that point?
No, not for me, Chair. So I'm happy to be called back in later.
Right.
I've got a more general contribution. I'll wait until you call me in on that.
Oh, sorry, not for me either.
Right. Okay. In that case, we'll go to Councillor Anthony Richards then, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd, and thank you very much, Chair. I support a lot of the questions that my colleagues have asked, and especially my fellow Ward Councillor, Lynette Purcell. And as you can imagine, she's raised many questions from the community that they've asked me the same questions as well. So I won't repeat those. I mean, we can all appreciate that this is a very emotive subject with very strong feelings on all sides. I respectfully understand that. But what I will say is, whatever our views are, I hope that we can all agree that the desire should be for the community to have a fair discussion based on honest facts. You know, we need a proposal that is grown from the community, and really not a proposal that is being imposed on our communities. And I think, you know, when you look at Councillor Ros Davis's intervention, you know, she really feels that this is being imposed on her community when they've got absolutely nothing left in their community. I know Andrew mentioned a point with regards to, you know, I think it was something along the lines of closing a school does not kill off a community. Well, I would argue it does not kill off a community immediately, but it is a suspended death sentence. It does take some time, and then those local shops, as Councillor Purcell was mentioned, that are so important to our community, eventually they can sustain when that local footfall is not coming in on the way to the schools. The whole purpose of any consultation is, of course, to provide as much information as possible for the public to respond. And, you know, whilst thoroughly reading the documentation, I have found that the document is a little bit unbalanced, and therefore I am really struggling to support the proposal with the current information to hand. Without that specific information being answered, it does, in my opinion, question the validity of this consultation, as there are a number of questions that are unanswered. I know, Andrew, you picked up at the beginning, and I appreciate that, about the pupil numbers. And there seems to be an inconsistency in the planned pupil numbers. And to me, you know, the pupil numbers make no sense. The proposal to close 3 schools and rehouse them in this new school means that the numbers fall short of the capacity of the school. So if you were to close all the schools tomorrow, rehouse them in this new purpose-built school, there's not enough pupils to be able to fill that school. So my question is, where did you get these figures from? Have these sort of capacity figures been independently calculated and verified? And I appreciate that you mentioned at the start that there is no intention to close any further schools, and we absolutely welcome that. But I am sure that, you know, you could understand and people's concerns, and I know some ward councillors grave concerns, because let's look at previous consultations from the past, including that of Ysgol Cwm Bromville. This also had spare capacity. The school was given the go-ahead. Then Cymerafon Comprehensive School gets closed to make up their numbers. No transparency from the start, and no opportunity for the community of the Upper Avon Valley to be involved in the consultation of Ysgol Cwm Bromville. I don't want this being imposed on Rhyd of Ro in the future. So what assurances, I know you've given an assurance at the beginning, but what assurances can you give that this will absolutely categorically not happen in the next 10 or 15 years? I'm not asking you to say that it'll never ever, you know, in 40 years to come, but in the next 10 to 15 years, if the current school proposal gets the go ahead. So that's my first question, but I do have some additional questions.
Thank you, Anthony. Were you specifically referring then to Rhyd of Ro, or were you just talking about generally schools in the Swansea Valley?
Well, with Rhyd of Ro, Rose, for example,
to be honest, I
don't
know why I asked that. My answer is going to be the same anyway. I at the start of this meeting, I gave a categorical assurance. I made the point that I'm making this statement as the Director of Education in front of my Chief Exec and the Leader and the Cabinet, plus the fact it's been recorded. I know there's members of the public on it as well. I can't be any clearer that there are no intentions to close any schools. One of the reasons that we didn't include Rhyd of Ro in this proposal is because of the swelling pupil numbers that we anticipate in the Swansea Valley. And we think we will need certainly the flexibility to have those schools, Ross as well, flanking the, if you like, the Swansea Valley Basin, so that if the pupil numbers carry on expanding, that we will have flexibility in those 2 schools to accommodate the pupil numbers in their locale, because that's what we have a responsibility to do. I completely get your point and other people's point they've made around pupil numbers. It does look confusing. And you're right, if we close the 3 schools now and moved them all into there wouldn't be enough pupil numbers to fill the new school. But of course, we're not planning a school for today or tomorrow. We're planning a school for the next 40, 50, 60 years. We also know from experience that new schools do attract other English medium schools, do attract other English medium pupils. We also know that there's over, well, in fact, it's nearly 300. I know the report doesn't use that figure. It uses 227, I think, in terms of the number of pupils living in the Swansea Valley who are educated at other schools in Neath Talbot, and there are over 100 pupils who are educated outside of Neath Talbot. And because we don't keep the information routinely for those people educated outside, later on in the report, it refers to another 55 pupils being educated in Powys. So actually, there's close to 280 pupils who could claim a place in this new school who don't go to either Llangyw Gallwen or Godrw Graig. We have a responsibility to develop a school which is future-proofed. Now, we are not saying that we expect all those 280 children to come back to the school. History and experience tells us that some will, but even if they don't, we are building a school. And don't forget, Welsh Government are putting 65% funding into this proposal. They've agreed that. They've looked at our pupil projections and they agree with what we're doing because they know we need to future-proof any development should it go ahead. So I completely understand your point around how the numbers look a bit odd compared to the number of pupils who are in the schools currently, but it's all about looking at the housing developments which are planned, the number of pupils who live in the catchment who can claim a place, and our admissions policies say that if they live in the catchment area of the school, they get priority in terms of claiming a place over and above others. So, it's quite a delicate balance trying to plan a new school in terms of pupil numbers, but I fully understand why you asked the question. But I go back to, there is no intention whatsoever for closing any more school in the Swansea Valley to accommodate them into this new school.
And have the capacity figures been independently calculated and verified?
Well, in that the business case has been approved by Welsh Government, yes.
Okay. With regards to the maintenance costs, what are the, I know Councillor Meisen touched on this, but what are the what are the outstanding maintenance costs of the relevant buildings?
The 3 schools?
Yeah.
I think it's cumulatively 2.1 million.
Okay, and you explained the situation with the backlog. Therefore, in the schools that I mentioned, i.e. Rhyd-y-Fro, etc., what is the maintenance backlog in those schools?
I haven't got that information to hand. We can certainly get in and circulate it, but it'll be hundreds of thousands of pounds. There's no two ways about it, because most of those costs are wrapped up in M&E, and even the more modern of the two, which is Rhyd-y-Fro, was built in the 1980s. So that there'll be hundreds of thousands of pounds of built-in maintenance backlog. But our surveyors, as I said to Councillor Meisen, will plan works on a worst first basis. So if Rhyd-y-Fro, for instance, is the school which is in most need of replacement boilers, that's what they will get because they are in most need, and other schools will have to wait. And that's the way we plan our planned maintenance capital work.
Yeah. As you can appreciate, this is a concern because it appears to be this massive backlog of capital spending in these schools, with outstanding and urgent repairs required in most areas of the school's premises, as well as Pontardawe swimming pool, etc. I mean, you've explained how this has been allowed to accumulate, but there is this wide suspicion, and I know you've answered the question as best as you can, but there is this suspicion that this has been part of the pre-planning for a consultation and for a money-saving issue, and we are concerned that, well, with the schools currently, but also with, are other schools going to close to accumulate this? And I know you've categorically stated, so I'll move on.
The other things, before we move on, the other things I would say about this is the same situation in every authority in Wales, and this is what Welsh Government understood when they embarked on their 21st Century Schools Capital Programme. So it's not unique to Neath Talbot by any stretch of the imagination. And the other thing I would add is this £2 million worth of building maintenance backlog attached to the 3 schools. Forget the swimming pool for now. If we were to undertake the work, if we decided that we're going to spend £2 million and do this work, it would not be £2 million. That £2 million is, first of all, in the vast majority of that is just over the next 1 to 5 years. What is anticipated to be spent in 1 to 5 years? What it doesn't take into account is how that work would be planned. And because if you rewire a school, for instance, the chances that could take months and months and months. We may have to decant pupils out of a school into temporary accommodation to get the work completed. So the costs of actually doing that work are likely to be at least double the actual sums of, if you like, the cost of replacing a roof, if you like. I've just been given, is that read of Rosa? I've just been given the backlog maintenance at Read of Row, and it's £524,000. So,
yeah.
But all schools have those condition reports, and we know in every school. So,
yeah. Okay. And then just further questions. So I'm going to move on to talk about the pool very quickly. And I mean, we can all agree that the pool needs improving. But can you explain to us how the proposal to close the existing 6-lane pool and replace it with a new 6-lane pool is of any benefit to the community as a whole?
Yeah, because the swimming pool is past its economic life. It is in a significant risk of business continuity failure, and that means it being closed. And even if we decided we wanted to spend £1.2 million, and again I go back to my point about completing the work, that pool would be closed for at least 12 months to complete any work. It's well past its economic shelf life, and it's not just the 6-lane pool, Anthony. It's the learner pool as well. And I speak from experience that it's a very well attended pool. It's very well used by swimming clubs and the public. So if this goes ahead, the intention would obviously be to build a new pool at the leisure centre while the current pool continues, and then when Pupils and the new school opens up, then we would close the old pool. So, and the benefit in terms of the pupils was obviously described in our business case to Welsh Government, because they've accepted to fund 65% of the swimming pool on the back of the business case in terms of the health and well-being benefits to all the pupils in the new school, plus Cwmtawi, plus all the surrounding schools as well. And then there's the community benefits as well. So, we made that case and Welsh Government accepted it, to be fair to them.
Yeah, I've got additional questions about the pool, but
Can I just ask because we have Councillor Mizzen, can I ask Councillor Mizzen if it's a subsidiary to any of that before we move on with your questioning, Councillor Richards?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to allay concerns actually for Councillor Richards when he mentioned about perhaps it's a slow death of the communities. We went through this a number of years ago when it closed Pontryfen and Bryn schools and moved all the children down to Carmarthen. That's what we were hearing as ward councillors, Anthony. It's a death of our community and what have you. And I can assure you, Pontryfen is thriving, and Bryn even more so, with young families moving in and building, brand spanking new houses there. So the actual community in Bryn is getting more of a community actually. So I don't find to lay any of your fears.
As I said, it doesn't necessarily kill off a community immediately, but it is a suspended death sentence, and let's wait for a few more years to see, and hopefully that wouldn't happen, but let's wait and see. With regards to what I am concerned about with some of the answers, Andrew, and respectfully, we are in a scrutiny committee, not to pacify officers. We are here to scrutinise. What I respectfully ask is that when we had this discussion previously about Carmarthen, it was all about the quality for the pupils, that they were going to have the best education. A lot of the things that we've mentioned today is because of cost savings, and we were assured when we were speaking about Carmarthen, it does nothing to do with cost. Now all of a sudden this is because we haven't got the funding to be able to sustain the schools as they currently are. So there's a lot of leading language, and I'm sure you'll remember that there was comments, for example, about what Estyn had said in a report that was in, I think, 2012, and you fail to mention the glowing report that they had in 2017. We haven't got that issue in our schools around here. There was some issues with Alltwen a number of years ago, but the educational standards are very good. So I am concerned with the leading language that gets put in each consultation, depending on the agenda of the council, I humbly feel. But again, going back to the school, on page 138, officers state that there will be wider use because of the improved location. Where have residents stated that the new location would be an improvement? Why have they said that? And will the public be able to use the pool during the day? And what will be the timetable for non-school visits?
I think you're jumping ahead. And when you're asking me about the pool program, you're obviously asking, you're jumping ahead many steps. So obviously that information isn't available. You say that we're talking about cost. I think what we're really referring to is value for money and the best use of public resource, which, whether we like it or not, is scarce, and we have a legal duty and a professional duty to make the best use of the finite resources that we have available to us. And whether we like it or not, those three buildings have significant building maintenance issues, which is a financial burden on the local authority to continue to maintain. There is an opportunity here, we think, and we've consulted on it, to make a better fist of it and come up with a better set of circumstances than the current ones. And quite clearly, whenever we go through a change programme, we know that not everybody agrees with that. But it is about efficiencies and best use of public resource and value for money, and not about cost. And I know I've used the term cost today, but it's just in reference to what things cost, but it is about value for money and efficiency, Anthony, and not just the cost. I accept that.
Yeah, can I just ask that? I appreciate that you think I'm going further ahead, but you have put out a consultation, and I know the school is the pool is a separate issue, but I'm thinking of my residents who go to things like the aqua aerobics, the prescribed sessions. They finding it really difficult with regards to the thought of it moving to that new location. So I can't quite understand, and it goes back to my previous point, where the document is using leading language or using language such as improved location. How is it an improved location for the swimming pool? I can't understand what. Where have residents stated that the new location would be an improvement? Why have they said that?
Well, you'd have to ask the residents, not me. But in terms of
sorry, in your report, if I can just come back, in your report, you have stated improved location. Look at page 138. What do you mean by improved location?
I was about to tell you what I think I mean by improved location. You kept referencing residents, so I don't know why the residents think that. But from my point of view, as an officer, I think running a leisure facility with over 2,000 pupils with direct access to it in terms of the business and commercial opportunities and the health and well-being opportunities for those young people to get into lifelong practice around living a healthy lifestyle, which involves physical activity and teams and friendships and socialization. I think that location is a better location than the current arrangements. So that's my professional view, and that's if I don't know what you referenced in the report. I've got the report here, but I won't look it up. So that would be my idea around a better location, Anthony.
The whole point of a consultation, though, is to take the opinions of the residents, and you've just stated there that is your opinion. So why, therefore, have you used the term improved location? That is biased towards what you think and not what the community think. And I want clarification on that biased language, because the report is riddled with biased language.
There's no biased language. We have Anthony,
how do you know it's an
we have
improved
articulated over many pages what people have said. In some cases, we've quoted people verbatim. Our job then is to give an officer response to it. So that's why I've given an officer response, because that's what we're required to do as part of the School Standards Framework Act.
Thank you, Anthony. I was just going to go to Councillor Patterson. I'll come back to you. Councillor Richards. Councillor Paddison, do you have a subsidiary to that?
Yes, please, Chair. Yes, thank you. As someone who has gone through this process from a ward member's point of view many times, I'm lucky to be surrounded by new 21st century schools in my ward. We've got the new by Baglan, we've got the new Welsh school, and we've got Owl and Moor that was the first school. And I was chair of governors at the time that school was proposed to merge with Glanamore. And I can remember vividly meetings where residents were vehemently opposed to those schools merging and the new one being built. Also, with regards to Baglan, I had issues regarding the community use that had been established over 50 years of the field. And I know that lots of people complained that they weren't going to get the same access that they had before. But I can now see that the new schools are providing excellent community facilities that are used all year round. So the only point I'm trying to make here, and I understand that ward members will say that each ward is different, and I totally get that. But you don't seem to get people coming forward and saying, I think this is a good idea. What you do tend to get is people saying, look, this is not what we've been used to, and I can't see it ever working out. But from the experience that I've had with 1, 2, 3 massive changes in schooling in and around my ward, I can hand on heart say that the number of complaints I've had from residents since the schools are built, I can probably have them on one hand. So I do want to give reassurance that at this stage, it looks like you don't know what you're agreeing to. And I can take on board Andrew's comments, because I had discussions with him at the time, very similar to what people are saying now. But I can say that the community use has improved, I don't know how many percent, but 100, 150%, because it is used now all year round, whereas before it was only used. And I don't want to take up too much more time. I just wanted to give my own personal views of knowing how much residents object, and knowing at the other side of it how many complaints I now have. So I just wanted to add that to the debate. Thank you.
Councillor Purcell, is yours a subsidiary point?
Yeah, I just want to help clarify to Andrew what we are concerned about and what Anthony is trying his best to verbalise, which is, at the moment, the pool is in the central of Pontedower. I have many elderly residents who walk to that pool, enjoy, let's say, something like aquarobics, and then walk into Pontedower, this is pre-COVID, have lunch, go to the arts centre, fantastic. The new improved location, which is what Anthony keeps referring to, is down a long road, which is difficult to access if you do not have a car. From that point of view, it is not, as far as that community is concerned, an improved location. And that's what Anthony's trying to explain. Just thought I'd help him out. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette.
Councillor Richards.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that, and thanks for the clarity, Councillor Purcell. With regards to Councillor Paddison's point, I'll just come back, because something that she said in one of the meetings previously really resonated with me, and she said that she's become a convert to people being educated through the medium of Welsh, and part of that, and that's really to be welcome, and part of that was because she was part of a task and finish group, which heard the views of those people, and the fact that she's had to convert there, it shows the importance of listening to people and being able to get other people's views. From this consultation, how much support was there for this proposal?
I think it was 21 people responded in favour of it.
Yeah, so we've got words like improved location, etc., but there was only 21. I take on the Appoint that Councillor Paddison said as well, but I do believe that a lot of the communities were in the same vicinity, and as Councillor Ros Davies said, this is not in that community. So when you say things like excellent community facilities, places like Godreg Graig won't have those excellent community facilities, so we need to take that into consideration. Yeah, so there was 21. It seems absolutely clear to me, and I think Councillor Rebecca Phillips mentioned this as well, that from the consultation report that there is very little support for the new school proposal in the community that it's meant to serve. It does highlight some positive comments. However, the overwhelming majority have not provided any support to the proposal. Therefore, how much engagement did the officers have with the community about this proposal? What responses have residents or people had from the officers to alleviate their concerns and fears? And if so, what percentage have now changed their mind due to those responses from officers? And what does the council officers believe to be the disadvantages of this proposal? We've got a lot of advantages. What are the disadvantages of this proposal?
The consultation methodology is explained in the report. It's other than the public meetings is exactly the same. It follows the record that we're required to follow. We have also, as part of the consultation exercise, responded to numerous letters and emails asking for further information. And again, that's contained within the report. It's impossible for us to know what percentage of people have changed their minds because we don't know what their state of mind is when they contact us. And what was the last question you asked, Anthony?
What does the council officers believe to be the disadvantages of the proposal?
There's a risk assessment report contained within one of the appendices, which talks about the risks of delivering the proposal and obviously the benefits and the disbenefits of the proposal. And it's contained in Appendix F, I think, or it's certainly in the report for members to understand. So it's fairly blunt in terms of as I say, what the benefits are and what the risks of introducing the proposal and what the risks of not introducing the proposal.
So what you're saying there, with regards to the consultation and any emails that people have sent, you have responded to each and every one of those.
I believe so.
Consultation,
yeah.
but
Yes, yeah.
The emails that have come in.
The consultation report is intended to pick up the themes of the consultation, but those emails and letters that we had individually, we believe that we responded to everyone. Certainly everyone that that we're aware of.
Okay, I'll double check that. Sorry, and then I am finishing, Chair. Thank you. What is clear to me on my finishing remarks is that these plans have not been developed in partnership nor with the support of the community, and they were consulted upon during such an extraordinary time. We had a national pandemic. It was over the Christmas period when schools were closed. Communities could not chat about these plans outside the school or on the walk to school because of the pandemic. There was no public meetings, etc. I know Jeremy Miles, the member of the Senedd, asked for a public meeting. We didn't have one. We could have had one virtually. Sinead Williams, who at the time was not a member of the Senedd and now has been duly elected as a member of the Senedd, also was raising similar concerns. So on that point alone, I'm not saying that what I'm saying is that I would suggest that the Labour Cabinet members reconsider this proposal and allow for a full and open engagement with the community and council. I strongly believe that this proposal should be reconsidered with a proper community-based consultation on the future of our primary education. We need to restore community confidence, and as this council claims that it is a listening council, then let's listen to the pupils, parents, teachers, respondents, governors, town and county councillors, outside memberships of, as you mentioned at the start, the two have said that they didn't support the proposal, but we haven't had sight of that, but we will do after this meeting. Members of the Senedd who represent these wards. We need a proposal that is grown from the community and not a proposal that is being imposed on us.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. In that case, we move on to Councillor Simon
Sorry,
Noyle.
Chair, could I just respond?
Yeah.
Just very briefly. Councillor Richards has just asked for a proper community consultation, I think were the words he used, in my opinion, because that's also borne out by Council's opinion. That's exactly what we just undertaken.
And for people with neurodiverse conditions, were there procedures put in place? Or for, you know, people who are not, we've got a lot of social deprivation in the area who have not got iPads or...
I have to say, Councillor Richards, that you know, I think we've had answers to that. I'll give you an opportunity to come back at the end, but I'm going to move on through the list if that's okay. Councillor Simon Noyle.
Thanks, Chair. I've made a few notes, and a lot of my notes have been answered by Andrew as we've gone through this. But I will say what I can pick up from here. The report, obviously 357 pages long. Clearly, an awful lot of work went into that, and to read it all was a difficult and hard read to digest it all. But I'm sure all of us have done that. What I would like to say is that we've heard representation from the local ward members. In my opinion, they are the informed people who, from what I've read and heard, understand what the local feeling is about this report and the possible scheme. Within the body of the report, just one thing I've picked up on in a number of responses in terms of the online in favour, I think less than 10% were in favour of it. I think that speaks volumes, perhaps. Just briefly, in terms of maintenance, I mentioned in a recent Kevin Coyd committee meeting about regular maintenance checks and surveys of our assets. I think this report highlights once again that our assets are very important to us, and whether we've got the budgets or not to do them now, or whether we should be lobbying Welsh Government to give us more funding to be able to improve our assets. Our school buildings are in the main old. Councillor Meisen has said that his is over 100 years old. They probably require more attention to them. We have a duty and obligation to our children to provide the best possible facilities to enable them to learn and grow as our future generation leaders. But something that's probably picked up that's really more important than anything is the consultation. I think that what I've read and what I've heard today, consultations from the local members and the residents within the area, the majority of them are against this, and I just feel that that's something we can't ignore. I don't know if it's going to come. I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I myself would have gone along with an amendment for the recommendation for further and more detailed information provided on this. I understand we've been pressed with a decision today. There's a cut-off to ensure the next stage is completed timely, but I personally feel uncomfortable having to make a decision, especially in light of events earlier on this year as well. I think that what I've heard today, I cannot support the recommendation. I feel that there are too many anomalies in the report, and from the response I've heard today, coinciding with the outstanding investigations. As a councillor, I've got to base my decision only on the information provided to me, and I just don't feel it's strong enough to persuade me that going ahead with the recommendation is the correct decision. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Noyle. Did you want to say anything, Andrew?
I mean, I'm not sure Councillor Noyle asked any questions, but just in terms of the response to him, it's not unusual to have, in fact, it's commonplace to have far more responses against a proposal than for it. In fact, and it isn't a competition, but where we've done this sort of thing in across the county borough, we've had far more comments and larger petitions against the proposal than we've had in this case, and I think we've also had more positive comments than we would normally expect, because people, as one councillor said earlier, people don't generally come out in support of it, but they do come out against it, and that's maybe human nature, I'm not sure, but it is typical in terms of a school reorganisation proposal. And what we do know, because we do these reports, post implementation, and as Councillor Patterson said earlier, once these proposals are implemented, they are very, very successful and everybody seems happy with them. But the change part itself is a difficult process, and I completely respect that.
I've just seen your hand go up, Councillor Noyle. Did you want to come back on that?
Oh, thank you. Yes, Chair. There was just one other thing that I thank you, Andrew, for that. There was just one other thing that I wrote down here that I forgot to mention, and that was location. And I think Councillor Patterson and her location is completely different in her respect to this. I would like to say about what Councillor Rosalind Davis said about Godregraig and Valleys communities. I do think that the Valleys communities, I represent one myself in Neath, the Neath ward member. And I think the Swansea Valley is different to how it is down perhaps where Councillor Patterson and others are, and what's happened in those areas as well. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much, Chair.
I have 2 more speakers left to go on the main list. Are the people who've just put their hands up asking or making subsidiary comments to this? So that's Nigel Hunt, Suzanne Patterson and Councillor Miller.
I am, Chair.
And Nigel, in that case, if you'd like to make your point.
Yeah, I just want to, Councillor Patterson was saying about that a lot of the issues that people were anticipating have not come to fruition with the new 21st century schools in our area, which again is very different to the Swansea Valley. We're an urban area, whereas the Swansea Valley is much more remote and rural. But what I would say to Councillor Patterson is that just last month, I was getting images of Village Road in Baglan Moors, where there were profound safety concerns around the parking that's going on around there, around the school run, people parking on double yellow lines. We've got photographic evidence of this. We've parked it on, and this wasn't anticipated before the building of the schools. This is something that's come about now that the schools are in place. We've got profound problems on there, and of course, the annual surgery that we have in Aberafon and Baglan Moors, we've got numerous issues around traffic and highways, and this is putting a further strain on it. So it wasn't anticipated around Brodeer and around Esgob Baglan, and I'm sure there will be problems in Pontardawe that you haven't anticipated yet. But I can provide photos of the issues in Baglan Moors, and I said it's putting a further strain on highway problems in our ward. Thank you.
I think many schools have unprecedented parking issues. I'm going to go next to Councillor Patterson.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that point. I was talking about the community spirit aspect of one school merging with another, not the overall. So I do take your points. Anyway, Andrew, of the numbers, the numerical numbers of people that you've had responding to the consultation, what percentage of that is that of the total population of people affected in those areas?
I don't have that information to hand. Okay. I don't know if
I was just
anybody
trying
else
to find out how many people actually bothered to reply back, whichever way they felt about it. So, okay, if you haven't got it, you haven't got it.
We can certainly get the information and circulate it to members, Suzanne.
Okay.
We'll see if we can dig it out now whilst we're still on this
all right.
meeting. But yeah.
I think that would be useful, Andrew, if you could. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As a member for Neath East here, we had our comprehensive school taken away as such. Coats Art going for the main into Baglan, and subsequently, children from this area then having to go up to Kevin's excuse me. Now, we had exactly the same worries on those moves. If Andrew recalls rightly, we were up in arms, in relation to it, because, you know, it was taking a school, a community school out. But we've been very fortunate in some ways in that the 3 Britain Ferry schools were amalgamated onto one site, which was the old Courtsart site, and is happily situated there. There are traffic issues, I'm not saying, but they never go away because there's traffic issues wherever you go. But it's a joy to see people walk in, and they walk along a very busy main road. You know, people underestimate the volume of traffic that comes our way, and they have to use pelican crossings, etc., to actually get to the mix of it. So, you know, we've had our issues with schools going forward. What I'd like to ask Andrew, and is if it can be done, is to look at all of the amalgamated, you know, schools and that, to see and what percentage of children drop out and go to other areas. And I believe that's small percentage, because we normally have reports of this in our, you know, our scrutiny committee, but it would be good.
We appear to be losing you on occasions, Councillor Miller.
Yes, I muted myself then, Chair, sorry.
And again.
Yeah, if we could have those types of figures to give an all-round position, you know, I think, you know, perhaps residents up in the area that we currently talking about may be a little bit more satisfied that they know the children will be perhaps going to a school that is going to be suitable for 21st century operations, because the ones that we got here are absolutely first class. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. We could certainly look to provide something which would be meaningful, because obviously if you extrapolate over too many years, then children leave because they go off to secondary school. So we certainly provide something. But again, I'll draw a parallel with you know, comments that people have made on this call today around parents won't send their child to this school because they're dead against it and opposed to it. But no one was put up a bigger fight, harder fight than the residents and the stakeholders and the school community of Caernarfon. And they all said they wouldn't go to Cumbrombil. They'd go to Maesteg and they go to Kevin Syson before they go to Cumbrombil. And the truth is, we provide transport and it's free, and we always will do. And the vast majority of the people who are in Caernarfon go to Cumbrombil today and are very, very happy and very, very settled there. So, you know, that's an experience I can share. I'm not saying that the people of the Swansea Valley, if this proposal goes ahead, won't be true to their word. I'm just sharing that experience. We were told that adamantly that, you know, children won't go to that school in Cumbrombil, yet that's what happens.
Councillor Phillips, you had a subsidiary.
Yeah, it was just a note regarding Councillor Patterson's comments, asking for the number or the percentage of people that have responded to consultation. Maybe they don't reply to the consultation because they think this council doesn't listen to them. I know as a ward member, I'm always urging people to reply to consultations, and their answer is there's no point. So just to urge all members that we do listen to people who have responded to this consultation, and the community do not support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. I've been involved in many consultations. I don't think any of them have had a majority of people responding who, in whatever subject, who actually are supportive. It's always people who are concerned. I'm going to go next to Councillor Jo Hale, who's had her hand up for a long-term question for a while, and then to Councillor Alan Llewellyn. So, Councillor Hale.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, Andrew. It's just basically about active travel. I know with the consultation, parents are asked their mode of travel plans, and 79% said that they would travel to school by car. These figures are shocking from a childhood health perspective, considering that 30% of children are estimated to be obese or overweight. It truly seems unbelievable that this council will condone a policy which would decrease childhood activity. Reducing emissions from vehicles is a major part of the government's plan to cut greenhouse gases. Schools are encouraging children to reduce their carbon footprint, and so should we. The scheme, which is ongoing in Brincourt South with safer routes in the community, is hugely to encourage more children to walk or cycle to school. Yet, with this new school, it is making this impossible. Climate change presents the greatest threat to both human and natural stability of human society. Within the UK, local government has been at the forefront of delivering changes, with over half of local authorities declaring a climate emergency. So I'd just like to know, where does this all fit in with encouraging active travel?
Yeah, thank you, Jo. You're absolutely right. It is an important part of people's daily activity. But unfortunately, I don't know whether it's because parents are overly protective, but they even now a significant amount of people travel to Ashwell and Llangook by car, and we've got that detail within the report. Active travel is about encouraging and developing, safe, suitable walking routes, so that children can cycle, walk, scoot, as was mentioned earlier. In Godrevy, for instance, prior to its temporary relocation, 47%, I think it is 47%, the numbers now are becoming a bit blurry in my head, I think travelled by car to Godrevy, and of course at the moment, 87% of them, I think it's 87 again, travel by bus, so there's fewer cars on the road as a result of that change. The health and well-being benefits described throughout all the reports, we think are a significant aspect of this. Say, primary age children having access to the sorts of facilities on a daily basis, and that's preschool, during school and after school, in terms of what the leisure centre can offer, the outdoor playing fields, the 3G, the Mooga, the tennis courts, the play park. I think the swimming pool, as I say, the learner pool, I think are almost second to none probably in Wales. So the that physical activity well-being aspect for the young people should not be a problem through a combination of extracurricular and curricular activities. But you are right, it's still important for us to encourage our young people to travel not by car or bus safely. And we will continue to do that, and the school will continue to do that. It is ironic that if we suggest that children should walk to school, we get complaints that things aren't safe. And going back to Sandra Miller's comments earlier, and thank you for the contribution. One of the big issues with the Cutsart closure was that pupils would have to walk to school, and now we're having a discussion around the fact that that's a bad thing. So active travel is important. It is something that the council is developing a strategy around, and the traffic impact assessments will inform us, if we get to that stage, enormously around what the impact on the emissions will be, and what mitigation the council can undertake as part of this development, should we get that far. But you're right to bring it up, Councillor Hale.
Just to add, in Brincourt South, we've got this safer routes in the communities, and a lot of money is being spent on that to make it safer for our children to be able to travel back and forth to school. Will this be possible, given the location of this new school?
Well, that would be the ideal, and that's what we'll be considered. When I responded to Wyndham Griffiths earlier, that's what I referred to when I said whatever work needs to be undertaken to make sure that those routes are suitable to walk, that will be undertaken, as long as it's not ridiculous levels of public expenditure. But that would be the aim, certainly, to enable young people to walk to school safely.
Okay, thanks.
Or,
thank you.
Or cycle or scoot, not just walk.
Thanks.
I was going to move on to Councillor Alan Llewellyn. Councillor Davis, is this a subsidiary point?
Yes, it is. You just stated active travel wherever possible. Well, do you really expect children to be able to walk for 5 miles from Yslefera down to Pontardawe?
No, we don't, and which is why if this goes ahead, transport will be provided for those young people.
Can I
But
therefore, sorry.
If the school was in another area where it should be, especially Pontardawe School, then they would be able to walk to school. But they're never going to be able to walk to school down to Pontardawe, are they?
Well, it's certainly outside of the permitted levels, which is where we provide transport. But as I just explained to Councillor Hale, the health and wellbeing benefits we think, as officers, displayed within the report are substantial, so that active lifestyle can certainly be followed.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Diolch Cadeirydd, Councillor Alan Llewellyn, Plaid Cymru Councillor for Ysgolfera. I have read the reports and listened carefully to today's questions and discussion, not only as a member of this joint committee, but also as a Swansea Valley councillor and as a councillor of Ysgolfera, which is part of the catchment area for Godwrhaig Primary School. There are many positive aspects of the 21st Century Schools programme in Wales, but the gaping hole in this proposal is that it hasn't grown from the community. The business plan based on a primary super school was submitted to Welsh Government before any community consultation or genuine dialogue on the needs of primary education in the Swansea Valley. And since then, the local authority has not realistically considered alternatives or persuaded parents of the advantages of the project. There's been a top-down approach with a plan that is seen as being imposed on the valley, and the consequences of this approach are clear in the response to the consultation. Out of 234 responses, only 21 are in favour, not counting a petition of 413 signatures in opposition. Now, despite all the difficulties of responding to a consultation during the pandemic, I really appreciate the level of response. And the detailed reports and surveys that have also been submitted, I think has been very valuable work. Now, as acknowledged in the report and the beginning of this meeting, the consultation period closed before the tape of former council leader, Councillor Rob Jones, was released, which centred a lot on the school's policy. Now, that tape is still being investigated by the Ombudsman and other authorities, and obviously they must consider the outcome in due course. But I must tell this meeting that it has completely undermined credibility and trust in the County Council among the communities of the Swansea Valley. Now, for these communities facing the loss of valued and loved primary schools to be amalgamated in a huge development that seems completely out of scale. I know the new school will have good quality design and facilities. It might seem more straightforward than redesigning 3 village schools, solving the maintenance problems and backlog of those schools, avoiding the headache of repairing Pontardawe swimming pool. But we're not talking expediency here. The community assessment shows the potentially damaging community impacts. If we look at Godwrhaig as an example, obviously my ward is part of its catchment area. The school is the heart of the village and the only public building available to the community. And by the way, this is the 3rd time that the local education authority has tried to close this school and is trying again despite vastly increased pupil numbers and consistently improving ESTIN inspections. It's currently part of a balanced provision of Welsh and English primary education in that community. Now, today's report looks only superficially at realistic alternative sites in Godwrhaig for a 21st century school, and really there has been no attempt to engage the community in looking at sites. And in the meantime, the school is in limbo in temporary demountables. You may not know, for instance, that the pupils of Godwrhaig haven't had a hot meal in their school since the pandemic began. Now, I'm grateful to colleague councillors for highlighting the concerns about traffic, the size of the proposal, community impacts on Alltwen and Ynys Meadow, and potential impacts on Welsh medium education and other issues. I have to say that as local members, we are not convinced about moving on to a statutory consultation period, and I think there are other members that share our concerns. We have taken the appropriate legal advice whether this should be subject to an amendment, but accept that the recommendation should be subject to a vote today. To summarise, Neath Talbot Council was premature in basing its entire approach on the primary super school from its initial business case submission to Welsh Government. The proposal has not grown from the community. It is a top-down approach which feels to be imposed. The consultation shows the proposal is not supported by the community. There will be damaging community impacts. The size and location of the proposal will be damaging to both English medium and Welsh medium education in the Swansea Valley, and community confidence in the process has been undermined. In conclusion, the proposal should be rejected today and reconsidered with a proper community-based consultation on the future of primary education in the Swansea Valley. Chair, I would also request a recorded vote. Thank you for your attention.
Councillor Paddison.
Thank you, Chair. I do appreciate you coming back to me yet again, but it's just subsidiary questions that arise out of the debate. When we had our, perhaps Karen Jones would be able to answer this for me. When we had our council and we had our process looked into, were any of the items that Councillor Llewellyn has just raised pointed out to us as being lacking in our consultation?
Just to repeat what I said at the beginning of the meeting, Councillor Paddison, if you just bear with me a second, because I actually wrote the words down so I could make sure
That's fine, that's fine.
Exactly what was in the reports. The independent external exercise has said that the council can take overall assurance regarding its systems and processes. And as I said earlier, there are some recommendations about improving the way we record some of our meetings. The Auditor General has said that he doesn't feel it necessary to undertake specific audit work at the present time. And the Public Services Ombudsman has advised he's not aware of any issue that would go against us bringing this report forward today, and that his investigation is focusing only on the member, not on the broader system or governance issues. So I've read you out the words that have given to me.
Thank you very much. And may I ask you then, as Chief Executive, are you indeed happy with the way our consultation process for this item has proceeded?
As far as I'm concerned, Councillor Paddison, the whole point of getting the additional assurances was to make sure that when we brought this report forward today, that we were doing that with absolute confidence. And I've got full confidence in what Andrew has and his team have done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I have no other indications to speak, so I'd like to thank officers and members for their input. Andrew, did you want to just say some final words?
Not say some final words. As I did say, we tried to get some information, and I am going to give this a health check in terms of the percentage of the population. So I'm health checking these figures, but based on what we believe to be the population of Allwen, Godricrug, Ystalyfera, Pontardawe and Trebanos of approximately 15,000, and that's all ages, the 234 responses against the proposal represent 1.56%, and the 21 positive is 0.14%. So that's I'm only providing that because I was asked to.
I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. In that case, can I refer the Scrutiny Committee to the recommendation on page 36 of the Cabinet Papers? Councillor Charlotte Davis.
Chair, but just before we get to the recommendation, if members are happy that the discussion has been completed for this afternoon's meeting, I know that Councillor Llewellyn has requested for a recorded vote. So prior to us going to the recommendation, firstly, we just need to see if there's a sixth of the committee happy to have a recorded vote. So is that okay if I do that first?
Please do.
Yeah, so firstly, can I have a proposer and a seconder for a recorded vote?
Can I propose, please?
And I'm happy to second.
And I'm just going to lower my hand, and then if I can just ask for a show of hands, please, on that having a recorded vote. Yeah, that's great, Chair. Then that motion is passed. So what we can do now is go to the recommendation. We'll have a proposer and a seconder as usual. And then I will read through the names for who's for, against, and abstaining. So if you want to go through the recommendation part, that's fine.
So are we going to do that by a roll call?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So in that case, the recommendation is on page 36. Can I first ask that, well, can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to take a recorded vote on what? I need somebody to propose the recommendations. Sorry, too much going on at once. So can I have a proposer for the recommendation, please?
I move, Chair.
And a seconder?
I second, Chair.
Thank you. And in that case, if we move over to Charlotte to lead a recorded vote on the recommendation.
Yes, thank you for that, Chair. So I'm going to read through the names now of those who can vote within this committee. And if I can just ask that you either say that you're for, against, or abstaining. So I'll start with Councillor Matthew Crowley.
For the recommendation, Charlotte.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon Freegard.
For.
Councillor Wyndham Griffiths.
Against.
Councillor Joe Hale.
Against.
Councillor Sian Harris.
Sorry, miss. Was that me then?
Sian Harris.
Yeah, against.
Yeah. Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Against, Charlotte.
Councillor Jane Jones.
Against, Charlotte.
Councillor Dennis Keogh.
For.
Councillor Simon Noyle.
I'm against, Charlotte, please.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
And Elvin, Charlotte, against.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
For, Chair.
Councillor Rydian Maisen.
For.
Councillor Suzanne Paddison.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Sheila Penry.
For.
Councillor Rebecca Phillips.
Yn erbyn, against.
Councillor Mark Prothero.
For, Charlotte.
Even Stevens at the moment.
Councillor Lynette Purcell.
Against.
Councillor Cypher Harmon.
For.
Councillor Suzanne Renkes.
For.
Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
For.
The whip.
Councillor Anthony Richards.
Yn erbyn, against.
Councillor Rachel Taylor. Councillor Marcia Spooner.
Yn erbyn, against.
Councillor Rachel Taylor.
For, Charlotte.
Councillor Dave Whitelock.
For, Charlotte.
Councillor Rob Wood.
For.
Councillor Arwyn Wilcock.
For.
And then co-opted member Marie Caddick.
I'd like to abstain, please.
Chair, if you just give me 2 minutes, I just want to go through these figures before I read them out aloud. Bear with me.
We just have a little bit of checking going on to make sure the numbers are as recorded.
Sorry, thank you for that, Chair. I just wanted to double check those figures before I read them aloud. So just to, for the benefit of members and for the public, we have 27 members in attendance today who can vote. So what we have for is 15. We have 11 against and 1 abstain. So in that capacity, the recommendation goes forward.
Councillor Miller, you have your hand up.